So in this scene, we actually see Romeo and Juliet who find out about each other. They actually meet each other for the first time in this very scene. You have the coupling of both love and fate. Now, why do I say this? Because after they meet each other, they fall in love, they go through a little bit of conversation, they even kiss each other. So I'm using the word love really loosely here, but let's just say that they love each other already. You know very well that also in the same scene, their identity ends up being exposed. So the fact that their identity gets exposed, the fact that the story goes right back to who they are and why they shouldn't be together, it is the concept of fate that is introduced almost immediately after the concept of love is introduced. Obviously, there is a concept of speed that is introduced as well, because they meet each other and for the very first time decide to immediately kiss each other. And you also see the speed in which Romeo entirely forgets about Rosaline. And this is actually really pathetic because he actually came to the party because he saw Rosaline on the list. So for him to entirely forget about the girl that he was saying all these romantic poems about, and to now come to a point where he's basically claiming to love an entirely different girl upon first sight is a little bit childish. And it is certainly not a coincidence that Shakespeare put the story together in this way. He certainly wants us to be able to see that Romeo is more or less this young, hopelessly romantic and immature guy. We also see a certain level of foreshadowing. So Juliet actually says, if he be married, my grave is like my wedding bed. Now, for you to actually compare your grave to your wedding bed, if this is not ominous foreshadowing, I really don't know what is. Like you're in a situation where you're talking about your wedding bed, and at the same time, you're using the imagery of you lying down on your wedding bed in the same sentence as you lying down when you're dead. This is quite literally going to happen later on in the play. So it is a foreshadowing of the idea that the cost of love that is forbidden is literally death. And pay attention to the word married here, because what she said is, if he be married, then, you know, the whole thing about the grave and the wedding bed being the same thing. If he be married. So if he's not married, then it's okay, you know, I'm gonna be with him guaranteed because I love him. But if he's married, oh my goodness, then this is the one thing that stops everything. And therefore, you might as well just say, I'm never gonna get married again, and you know, everything is terrible. So that's what she's saying, right? She doesn't know if Romeo is married or not, but in her mind, Romeo being married is the only thing that can stop her. And she's actually really wrong, because Romeo being a Montague, that itself is going to be more than enough to stop her from being able to marry Romeo. So this is an interesting thing, because the word married, obviously, you know the definition of married when it comes to kind of like two people getting married. But there's another definition of married. And it is when you're trying to say that two things are combined. So if you literally replace the word married with combined, then the sentence would be reading like this: if he be combined, my grave is like my wedding bed. So here's an interesting thing. Is Romeo combined to something that stops her from being able to love him, that stops her from being able to marry him? The answer is obviously yes. Romeo is combined to the fact that he is a Montague. That's literally his family. He's from the Montagues. So this is something that he's married to. So by her definition, of course, if he be married to not just, you know, another girl, but if he be married to anything else, then her grave is like her wedding bed. And what she doesn't realize is that he really is, in many ways, he is married. He is combined to something that she can't control. So again, the idea of fate is kicked into everything all over again. As an audience, after we watch the whole play, or in this situation, after we read the whole play, when we come back to this moment, we kind of see the irony of the whole situation. And it is simply the fact that Juliet doesn't realize that Romeo is in many ways, has a commitment to his family. His family name itself makes it impossible for them to get married. Awesome, so that was the end of Act 1, Scene 5, and we will see you guys in Act 2, Scene 1.